The champagne glass felt cold in my hand as I watched my husband smile and laugh with his colleagues. He had no idea what was coming. None of them did. My name is Sarah and I am 34 years old. Tonight was supposed to be the biggest night of my husband Mark's career. His promotion to senior partner at the law firm. 5 years of long hours and missed dinners had finally paid off. Or so he thought. Please, before I continue, please support this channel by subscribing. Thank you. Let's continue. I stood there in my red dress, the one he bought me for our anniversary last year. Back when I still believed his lies about working late. Back when I thought those mysterious phone calls were just clients with emergencies. Back when I was still the naive wife who brought him coffee and kissed him goodbye every morning. The restaurant was fancy. White tablecloths and crystal glasses everywhere. Mark had rented out the entire back room for his celebration. 40 people from his firm were there. His boss, Mr. Henderson. His colleagues. Their wives. Even some clients he wanted to impress. Everyone was having such a good time. They were all so proud of Mark. So impressed with his dedication and hard work. If only they knew what kind of dedication he really had. I had been planning this moment for 3 weeks. Ever since I found out about her. About them. About everything. It started with a phone bill. A number I didn't recognize that showed up over and over. Late night calls. Weekend calls. Calls that lasted hours. When I asked Mark about it, he said it was a new client. A difficult case that required a lot of attention. I believed him. I always believed him. But then I found the credit card statements. Hotel charges. Restaurant bills for 2 people when he was supposed to be working alone. Jewelry purchases I never received. Expensive lingerie in sizes that weren't mine. So I wanted to believe. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe 15 years of marriage meant something to him. So I hired a private investigator. A woman named Janet who specialized in cheating spouses. She was expensive but worth every penny. Within a week she had photos. Within 2 weeks she had recordings. Her name was Amanda. She was 26 years old. She worked as a paralegal at a different law firm. She was beautiful in that young way that made me feel old and tired. Long blonde hair. Perfect skin. The kind of body that hadn't carried 2 children or lived through 15 years of marriage. They met at a legal conference 6 months ago. What started as professional networking became drinks. Drinks became dinner. Dinner became a hotel room. And it went on from there. The recordings were the worst part. Janet had somehow managed to bug his car. I don't know how and I didn't want to know. But she got everything. Every phone call. Every conversation. Every intimate moment they shared while driving around our city. I listened to all of it. Every single recording. I heard him tell her he loved her. I heard him promise to leave me. I heard him describe our marriage as dead and loveless. I heard him make plans for their future together. But the worst recording was from last week. He was begging her not to break up with him. Apparently she had gotten tired of being the other woman. She wanted more. She wanted him to choose. And he was pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. His voice was desperate and whiny. He promised her anything. Everything. He said he would leave me right after his promotion. He said he just needed a few more weeks to get his finances in order. He said he would buy her a ring. A house. Whatever she wanted. He was crying. Actually crying. Begging this woman not to leave him. Promising her the world while I sat at home making dinner and helping our kids with homework. That recording changed everything. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about the lies. The manipulation. The complete disrespect for our family. For our life together. I made copies of everything. Photos. Recordings. Credit card statements. Bank records. I gave copies to my lawyer. I hid copies in 3 different places. I was ready for whatever came next. But first I wanted my moment. My chance to show everyone who Mark really was. Not the dedicated professional they all admired. Not the loving husband they thought they knew. But the lying, cheating coward he actually was. I waited until the perfect moment. Mark had just finished his speech thanking everyone for their support. His boss had presented him with a plaque. Everyone was clapping and cheering. The photographer was taking pictures. It was his moment of triumph. That's when I stood up. The room got quiet pretty quickly. Everyone turned to look at me. Mark smiled and raised his glass, thinking I was going to give some sweet supportive wife speech about how proud I was of him. I smiled back. But it wasn't a sweet smile. It was the smile of someone who had been planning this moment for weeks. I had my phone ready. The recording was queued up. The volume was turned all the way up. I had tested it at home to make sure it would be loud enough for everyone to hear. "I want to propose a toast," I said. My voice was steady and clear. "To my husband Mark. A man who has worked so hard for this promotion. A man who has sacrificed so much for his career." Everyone raised their glasses. Mark looked confused but happy. He had no idea what was coming. "Mark has put in countless hours at the office," I continued. "So many late nights. So many weekends. So much dedication to his work." People were nodding and smiling. His boss looked proud. His colleagues were impressed by what a supportive wife I was being. "But I think Mark's real dedication has been to something else entirely," I said. "And I think everyone should hear about it." That's when I pressed play. Mark's voice filled the room. Desperate and pathetic and absolutely unmistakable. "Please don't do this, Amanda. Please don't leave me. I need you. I love you so much. I can't live without you." The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone stared at the phone in my hand like it was a bomb that had just exploded. "I know I promised to leave Sarah months ago," Mark's voice continued. "But it's complicated. The kids. The house. The money. I need more time." I watched the faces around the room. Confusion. Disgust. His boss, Mr. Henderson, looked like he had been slapped. His colleagues were staring at Mark with their mouths open. "I'll do anything," Mark's voice went on. "I'll leave her right after the promotion. I promise. Just give me a few more weeks. I'll buy you that ring we looked at. We can get that apartment downtown. We can start our life together." Mark was frantically trying to reach across the table to grab my phone. But I stepped back. I wasn't done yet. "Please, Amanda. I'm begging you. Don't throw away what we have. I love you. Not her. Not my wife. Only you." The recording went on for another minute. Mark promising to leave me. Describing our marriage as a sham. Talking about their future together. Planning their life while I sat at home raising his children. When it finally ended, the silence was deafening. 40 people staring at us. Nobody moving. Nobody speaking. Nobody even breathing. Mark's face was bright red. His mouth was opening and closing like a fish out of water. He looked around the room, desperately searching for some way to explain what everyone had just heard. "Sarah," he started. "I can explain. This isn't what it sounds like." But his voice was weak and shaky. Everyone could hear the guilt in it. "Actually, Mark," I said, my voice still calm and steady, "I think it's exactly what it sounds like. I think everyone here knows exactly what it sounds like." I looked around the room at all the faces staring back at me. These people who had known Mark for years. Who had respected him. Who had trusted him. Who had just heard him reveal himself to be a lying, cheating coward. "I'm sorry you all had to hear that," I said. "But I thought Mark's colleagues should know what kind of man they're working with. What kind of man they just promoted to senior partner." Mr. Henderson slowly stood up from his chair. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had always been nice to me at company parties. He had always seemed to respect Mark. "I think," he said quietly, "that this evening is over." People started getting up from their tables, gathering their purses and coats, whispering to each other as they headed for the exit. Nobody wanted to be there anymore. Nobody wanted to be part of this disaster. Mark was still trying to explain. Still trying to convince people that somehow this was all a misunderstanding. But nobody was listening. Everyone was too busy trying to get away from him. His colleagues avoided eye contact as they walked past our table. Their wives looked at me with a mixture of pity and admiration. Some of them nodded at me as they left. Like they understood what I had just done. Like they approved. The photographer had stopped taking pictures. The waiters were clearing tables. The celebration was over. As Mr. Henderson walked past me toward the exit, he stopped and turned around. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he reached out and shook my hand. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Coleman," he said. "You deserve better than this." Then he was gone. Along with everyone else. The room that had been full of laughter and celebration 15 minutes ago was now empty except for me and Mark and a few confused waiters. Mark finally stopped trying to explain himself to people who were no longer there. He turned to me with a look of pure hatred. "How could you do this to me?" he said. "How could you humiliate me like this?" I almost laughed. After everything he had done to me. After all the lies and cheating and disrespect. He was asking how I could humiliate him. "I didn't humiliate you, Mark," I said. "You humiliated yourself. I just made sure everyone else got to see it." He was shaking with rage. "This will ruin my career. My reputation. Everything I've worked for." "Good," I said. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to throw away our marriage for some 26-year-old paralegal." I picked up my purse and headed for the door. I had said everything I needed to say. I had done everything I came here to do. "Where are you going?" Mark called after me. "Home," I said without turning around. "To pack your things. You'll be hearing from my lawyer." I walked out of that restaurant feeling lighter than I had in months. The weight of all those secrets and lies was finally off my shoulders. Everyone knew the truth now. There would be no more pretending. No more fake smiles at company parties. No more playing the supportive wife while he destroyed our family. The divorce took 6 months. Mark tried to fight it at first. He hired an expensive lawyer and claimed I had invaded his privacy. But the evidence was overwhelming. The recordings. The photos. The credit card statements. Everything Janet had helped me gather. His law firm fired him 2 weeks after the dinner. Apparently having a senior partner who begged his mistress on tape wasn't good for their reputation. He eventually found work at a smaller firm for half the salary. Amanda broke up with him a month after the promotion dinner. Apparently she didn't want to be with someone who was unemployed and going through a messy divorce. She moved to another city and blocked his number. I got the house. The kids. Half of everything else. Plus alimony for the next 10 years. My lawyer was very good at her job. Mark tried to apologize a few times. He sent flowers. He wrote letters. He even showed up at my door once crying and begging for another chance. But I was done. I had heard enough of his begging on those recordings to last me a lifetime. The kids were upset at first. Divorce is hard on everyone. But they adjusted. They're resilient. And honestly, they seem happier now that the house isn't full of tension and secrets. I went back to work. I had been a teacher before I got married and stayed home with the kids. It felt good to have my own life again. My own purpose. My own identity that wasn't tied to being Mark's wife. Some people thought what I did was cruel. That I should have handled it privately. That I shouldn't have embarrassed him in front of his colleagues. But I don't regret it. Not for a second. Mark spent 15 years lying to me. Stealing from our family. Planning a future with another woman while I raised his children and supported his career. He humiliated me every single day with his lies and betrayal. I just made sure everyone else got to see who he really was. One moment of public truth after years of private lies. And you know what? Felt amazing. Standing there in that room full of people who had respected him and admired him and watching them realize what a fraud he was. Watching his perfect promotion dinner turn into his public downfall. I had spent so many years being the good wife. The supportive partner. The woman who smiled and nodded and never made waves. But that night I finally stood up for myself. I finally fought back. Mr. Henderson was right. I did deserve better. And now I have it.